much.
Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, November 7th. This meeting will be broadcast to Channel 22 as well as live streamed and recorded to the MRSC YouTube channel. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 24th, 2024 MRSC meeting. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes as they were presented in the packet? No? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain.
I will abstain.
As what?
Oh, abstain?
Three of them?
Three of us?
Yes.
Sorry for
So,
just Ryan and me. Does that have enough to? Okay. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody here for public comment this evening? No. We will move on to reports and discussions. And the first item on the agenda is the relations with non-public schools. We have Cape Cod Christian Academy, Dr. Tracy Waters. Yes, please.
Do I just speak or do I need to
Introduce yourself, who you
All
are.
right.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. I'm Dr. Tracy Waters. I'm the head of school of Cape Cod Christian Academy. And thank you for allowing me to come and present to the school committee. I received an email from Dr. Carpenter on October the 30th, and it informed me that I was invited to come back and, under their new policy, present how Cape Cod Christian Academy meets the standard of approved private schools in Massachusetts. On Monday, I received notice that I would need to submit all of that by the next day. So I have not had a chance to submit that in time. I have since done that, so it will be in the next minutes. But I have gone through each of the standards and created a packet that shows how we meet all of the standards that have been outlined in the approval of a private school. The one thing that came up is that I was called by Dr. Millen, and she said there was something on our website. I noticed that you had posted that in your minutes, and I just wanted to address that, if that was something that was a concern or something that looks like that we weren't a private school. This has not been on our website in at least a year and a half, so we were confused when we saw this. One of the things that I noticed is that in the URL, it has a Cape Cod Christian Academy.org/about us, and then if I look on the top bar of that web page, you can see that it's actually not there. There is no About Us page. So it seems like that was an old part of our website from back before we became a certified university model school and an accredited 5-day academic program somewhere out in cyberspace somewhere. I'm not quite sure. We looked at it as soon as we were notified. We could not find this page. So, but we did check through our whole website, and I hope that everything looks up to date so that it doesn't make anyone feel that we are homeschooling or that we are homeschoolers, as that seemed to be one of the biggest questions about it. So Cape Cod Christian Academy was founded in 2020. We have a rigorous and aligned academic program that is aligned to Massachusetts state standards. So I have outlined that in a packet that will come soon from Dr. Carpenter and his assistant, including pictures of all of the certificates of occupancy, fire inspections, safety inspections, pictures of our classrooms, our curriculum, the alignment of our curriculum, our educational materials, our school staff and their qualifications, which can also be found on our website, how we regularly evaluate our staff, how we maintain records through our online student information system, Praxis School, including all academic records, attendance, any other things that you would normally keep as records in a school system. I have also included documentation of our legal status, our tax exempt status, and went on to show our learning time and how it meets that, and how we do student assessments 3 times a year for reading, 3 times a year for math, and do an end of the year summative California achievement test. So I hope that all of this information will eliminate any questions or confusions about our status as a private school in the Monomoy district.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we can distribute the packets for the next meeting. They came today, so the 21st, I think, would be that meeting, and we'd be able to review that. I don't know if you can come back for questions on the 21st?
I'm happy to.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions, Jackie?
Yeah, actually, I had a question because I don't know if I missed a chapter, but I'm wondering that you were contacted by Dr. Millen because of this, or it was prompted because of our policy, or both?
I was contacted by Dr. Millen. In that phone call, she informed me that there had been something that was seen on our website, and that because of that, we were no longer considered a private school, but homeschoolers. I also received an email from Dennis Yarmouth District, who had been notified by Dr. Millen that we were no longer considered a private school. So that was where the questions came up, and I followed up with finding out like why we hadn't been notified and where was our due process to come and present to you under the new policy that we found out about at that time.
So when we met with you, I think it was last year, I mean, this is basically the story that it was, of how you guys came to be, you know, during COVID. So I guess my question is, now you're not, what's the difference? I mean, now you're rated at or seen by the state as a private school, because wasn't that what it was last year?
Yes, so this was in the beginning. We were definitely gearing toward homeschoolers because so many of the students were put into homeschooling. Since then, we went through a rigorous certification and accreditation process. So we are no longer homeschooling students. We are no longer supporting homeschooling students. We are doing the teaching, the education on the main campus and the satellite campus. They're both part of Cape Cod Christian Academy. It's like the university model is where you would go to school on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but you would also have coursework on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Just because you weren't in the classroom present doesn't mean that you weren't still doing all of the academics for that class. So that's the premise for the university model, but it is a 5-day academic program. That is how we are accredited. That shifted since 5 years ago when this was probably first written. There was a big shift in how we conducted business, how we interacted with parents, how we keep records, the rigor, the alignment of our academics, but specifically that we went through an accreditation process with Cognia, who is a very large and respected accreditation committee and company.
And that doesn't connect to DESE?
There's no connection to DESE. So my understanding from all of you in our last meeting is that that lands in the hands of the school committee. So DESE, you know, I guess could look at what you decide as a school committee based on all of our support for showing that we meet the standards of a private school.
Jess?
No, it's just what you just described as the difference between what you're saying that you're doing now and what you were doing previously. It feels like exactly what you presented to us last year.
Right.
That you could do either 1 day or 2 days in the school and then do the rest of your coursework at home, and that parents were able to choose what model worked best for their family. So is that not what's happening anymore? Because then if it's a difference, then what I remember it to be and other members remember it to be, maybe it's time to get a new presentation on what you're doing, because I understand this to be what you're doing. And even on the bottom of the page that's printed out, it says that it happened in 2024. So I don't know when the change had happened, but it seems like it's been on your website this year, so.
It was not on our website this year. I'm not sure if there was some technical thing where the website was closed and somehow it's sitting out in cyberspace. That's what we don't know. Our board went to it immediately when we were notified, and it was not on our website, which is evident up in the bar. It would show that there was what about us. That would be one of the titles, because that's how the pages are tagged. So for each one of the pages, it would have capecodchristianacademy.org, news, or donate, or home. So that's how they're tagged. So that's indication that that was not on our website. That might have been from years back. I'm sure it was, but it's not been that way for at least 1.5 years, because as soon as we became a certified university model school, that all changed. We're no longer a hybrid school. We're no longer a homeschool or support. It changed all of the things with our certification. It shifted. That was the same as last year, even when I presented as a university model school, and I said that yes, most of the time the students were on the main campus. It's 3 days on the main campus and 2 days in the satellite campus, but all of the professional standards are taught by the teacher in the classroom at Cape Cod Christian Academy.
I wasn't aware that there was a satellite and a main campus either. So, I mean, I really don't feel like we have a good understanding of what the school is doing. And without the packet, it's difficult for me to agree or disagree with anything that you're saying.
Right.
Which I think is why I was given the opportunity to come and answer these questions. So when you think about a satellite campus, that might be at home, that might be in a tutoring center, that might be in other places. So it's really up to that family where that satellite campus is taking place, but it's still an arm of our school because it's still being directed by our teachers, the professional teachers. The parents are not doing the teaching, that's done in the main classroom. They can reinforce, they can answer questions, they can work on study skills, they can do those things, but it's all reinforcement. So the teacher plans all of the lessons that day, all of the academics have to be done by the student as a continuation of what's going on in the classroom. So they still have the same amount of time of math and science and writing and all of those things happen on those days as well. But it's instructed by the main classroom teacher.
It sounds, I don't know how many other committee members have done homeschooling, but I have. I did after COVID with my own 3 children at home, and that sounds very familiar to my homeschool curriculum that I had. I had a parent program that had teachers that were overseeing what my children were doing, and then in our home we were doing the actual planning. So when you're saying that it's a satellite, do they have the teachers going to these satellite locations even if they're in the homes, or is it the parents that are doing the instruction?
The teachers are available for the students that if they need any help. The parents or the tutor or whoever there is also available. But homeschooling is different, and the parents in the homeschooling choose the curriculum, make their own lesson plan, decide how that goes. That's not at Cape Cod Christian Academy. At Cape Cod Christian Academy, we do all of the curriculum, lesson planning, rigor, alignment, all of that is done, and it's not the same as a homeschooling mom who could say, well, today we're going to do a little this and a little that. It's accountable to our school, and we're accountable to our accreditation and our university model certification. So it gives so much more accountability than a homeschooler. So we are not...
That wasn't my experience, just to say, but...
Right, and I think that even if I was talking to a homeschooler, they would probably get offended and said, no, you're not a homeschooler. You're not a homeschool. Like, homeschool is what I do. So I think that it depends on how you want to perceive it, but we are accredited as a 5-day academic program with rigor and alignment and standards, the same that the students in every other public school, traditional school in the state of Massachusetts have to meet. We meet those standards. We do academic testing. We show that our students are thriving, that they're growing in their reading, in their math. We have an end-of-the-year summative, cumulative. All of that is not homeschooling. That is exactly what happens in a traditional school system.
I do have a question. So if you don't want to do the satellite option, can students stay on the main campus 5 days a week?
We have some students that do offer tutoring on the main campus 5 days a week.
Tutoring, not just...
Tutoring meaning being led by a classroom teacher or a person on the main campus. But that's not required, it's not expected. They can do that wherever the family chooses. But it's still part of our campus because it's still being directed by our school and by the educator.
Go ahead, Brad.
Question on satellite campus. You said there's 3 different types of satellite campuses where they can spend 2 days. What percentage of them are at home of all the students?
That's a great question. I would have to actually do a survey of my parents to give you a data that was accurate.
Would you be able to have that for us when you come back?
Sure.
Jackie?
I think because of the timeline, it would be beneficial for you to have the opportunity to give us the full presentation with all of the information, the benchmarks, and the standards that you're discussing, and definitely coming back. That's really important information, like what Brad asked. Your percentage that is remote versus, or satellite, versus in the classroom. And then also, I would go back to just the timestamp on the screenshot of this is October 25th of 2024. So I think that's what leads to a lot of the confusion. But again, as you continue to explain the program, it exactly reiterates our story. So it's not differentiating from what this is, despite it's on your if it's on your website or not. So I think the presentation would be helpful.
Sure.
And more further clarification, and then again, those numbers that Brad had asked for, as well as the rest of the information. I think that would be the best.
Sure. I would like to take the time to show some of the main differences between what is on our website as a university model school and what is on this from a few years back. This was who we were a few years back. We shifted when we did the whole process. So all the things on the Our Team part of our website. Starts off the same way, but it says Cape Cod Christian Academy, a nonprofit university model school. And then it goes on to talk about, it doesn't talk about homeschooling in there at all. At the end, it says, we began accepting our first students in the summer of 2020. We received our 501c3 determination on September 8th, 2020. So some of that is there. And then it continues on to say, Cape Cod Christian Academy received its COGME accreditation in the summer of 2023 and officially became a private school in August of 2023. The school is under the oversight of a board of directors. So quite a bit of that is changed, and it doesn't talk about how we cater to homeschoolers or that we do homeschooling or that we are a hybrid school. All of that is different. Our program is much more rigorous and aligned, and we have the professional educators that direct all of the instruction. All of the standards are taught by the professional educators. You may think of the support at home or on the satellite campus or the tutoring center as paraprofessionals or support for the families or for the students, but the main teaching is done in our classrooms.
Madam Chair, when you come back next time, is there a way, like the university model, I know we talked about this when you came, but I think I need a refresher on what that is. If you can come back maybe and let us see the guidelines or that sort of thing, I think that might be really helpful.
And I'd love for you to also look at all the standards that we had to meet for our COGME accreditation. So it was extremely rigorous. It was over a year-long process to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions? The other clarification I just want to make, and I think this might have been part of a conversation with Dr. Millen. So part of this too for us is a walkthrough, and so I think you know that, okay? And that'll allow whoever's going to go to actually see it, and it'll make a lot more sense, I think.
I think so
Yeah.
too. We have that walkthrough scheduled for the 12th.
Okay.
So it's coming up this next week with Dr. Millen and Dr. Carpenter and the Director of Student Services, I believe.
Okay.
That was my question. So
Okay.
thank you.
All right, good, all right.
Anybody else?
Would we also be able to just see like MCAS scores or whatever from your students, just to see how they're doing compared to other schools?
So we're not required to take the MCAS, but we do an end of the year standardized achievement test, which is called the California Achievement Test. So I can definitely show you reports of that and just retracting some of the student information, and you can see what that looks like. It's a testing in math, spelling, English, grammar. So it's a very summative evaluation, much like the MCAS is.
Great.
I'm familiar with that test. I grew up in North Carolina, so we had the CAT test. So, yes.
Anybody else? Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Waters. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The next item is the MRHS student representative on the Monomoy Regional School Committee, Dr. Millen.
Good evening, everyone. Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. I'm just here to explain a little bit about your student representative for your committee, who is not in that seat at this time. Monomoy Regional High School in the statutes, so you have to vote for that seat in the springtime of the school year. Monomoy High School went out to find a representative for all of you and was unable to find that student or students to run in an election. So we're just asking for a consensus from all of you if you will allow us to extend now that election window. The high school feels confident, and now that the student councils are set and the grade level councils are set, that we can go out and see if we can find a group of students that would be interested in joining you for these wonderful, exciting, informative meetings that we have every other week, and that we can hold an election and hopefully get somebody seated by December, January timeline. But I just need to ask for your permission to do so.
Absolutely. Do we need an official vote, or can we just?
We think it can just be, oh, you need a vote?
Oh, we need a vote?
It's in the policy.
Oh, okay.
Timeline for the voting to.
Then we will have a vote on the agenda next time. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the sabbatical request.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Erin Hoffman, and I'm respectfully requesting a one-year paid sabbatical leave so I can pursue a license as a reading specialist. I started at Howard High School when I was 22 years old. I've worked for the district for 26 years teaching English, and though I love what I do, I really am looking to reinvent myself so I can sustain a career in education. I did make, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I did make copies of my cover letter and, okay. So I have been, I really feel like this, I know this district has a need for a reading specialist, and I feel like coming from the high school level, teaching all levels from remedial to advanced English, I have a keen perception of the deficits and difficulties that students have, and I really feel like I could help to close the gap as a reading specialist, and I could reach a greater population of students than I do now. I have looked into two universities, Bridgewater State and Salem University. Bridgewater is a hybrid, Salem is a remote. Both, the reason why I haven't nailed down one yet is because I really have to know that the leave would be granted to enroll, because it's not something I can do while teaching full-time. Both programs require a practicum of 150 to 200 hours, which is not feasible working full-time nor in the summer when schools are not in session. I know that you would need an agenda, and when I enroll, if I enroll, I would give you a complete agenda with dates, times. I've also attached the course outlines of the different classes. It's anywhere from 30 to 33 credits. I'm hoping to get it done as close in a year as possible.
Any more questions? What's the timeline for the process?
It's a rolling admissions,
Okay.
so it doesn't really matter. I've been in contact with both schools, so I could enroll immediately if I knew, but it's also an application fee and all this, so I didn't want to, just start the process if I wasn't able to finish the process.
Sure. And who pays for the schooling?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I just, because I read through everything, and I just wanted to confirm, is this program virtual, hybrid? Are you okay.
So the Bridgewater is a hybrid, so
Okay.
it would be in class and on the computer. Salem State would be a remote.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
What skills would this give you by having these courses? And how would that help you in terms of, what would you be able to do then that you wouldn't be able to do now? How would that help the school system versus now?
Well, it would also be kind of an intervention to teach reading, phonetics, spelling, vocabulary, and that would be, I work with older students right now, so I've taught 9 through 12. I would like the opportunity to work with a different demographic. I think it would help to, it's more like an intervention, I think, than, I just think I could reach a greater population than I do in the classroom right now. It would give me the skills to be able to test and evaluate and give students what they need to help wherever they're struggling in, or I could also help, once I know what I'm doing, I could help create programs or work with other teachers to help them and assist them in the classroom as well.
Any other questions? Jack?
Just because I'm not well-versed in the programs for this specific discipline, a full year doing it versus just why you're choosing to do this versus breaking it up. I don't even know if it's offered to do it, to continue doing your job and then taking the courses to get the degree. I was just curious.
For me, it's teaching full-time, and then I have 2 young children at home, and I have taken classes. I've taken a lot of classes at home, and I struggle with it, and I would want to put my complete concentration into what I'm doing. And also the practicum, that means I have to do 150 to 200 hours in a school system, which would be impossible to do if I'm teaching full-time.
So you said Salem, though, is completely remote.
Right, but they would, I'm sure they would tell me which school to go to, or we would work something out. Like when I did my student teaching, I went through Brockton High School.
Oh, not for the practicum, for the classes.
Oh, the classes would be remote, but they would require me to go in person to work at a school.
Yeah, no, of course, I was just, you had said that it's difficult to be at home and,
Right, well, I don't have my kids at home, and then I could get a lot more done, but.
Right, well, we all could. Okay. And then the only other question I have is, just off the top of my head, I don't even know how many reading specialists we have. And the positions we have, and I know just with our constricting numbers every year, I just don't, I want to foresee that you can take this and use it within the district. So that's kind of in the forefront of my mind, making sure there's that position there for the reading specialists. Here she comes.
Melissa McGuire, Director of Student Services. So currently, we have a .3 reading specialist at the high school based on some needs that we've seen up through the years. We have at the middle school, we have 2 of our special education teachers who do reading instruction along with their other modified classwork. At the elementary school, the special education teachers who are trained in Wilson, Norton, Gillingham provide that instruction. So we don't have positions for reading specialists currently, other than the .3 at the high school.
Is there a
Does that-
need?
So I'm sorry, I felt like a big sigh, because it's, because, I mean, people hear me talking about reading all the time and really looking at the needs of our students. My hope and dream is to build the capacity of our teachers so that it is, a pre-K up, so that we're not seeing students in the middle school carrying the same level of, gaps, or their disability is such that we continue to provide the same interventions, up through high school, because we need to do something different. So, the goal is to build the capacity so that we're at the lower levels, so that we're really putting in intensive interventions for reading support, and as we go along, doing something different. So I know that doesn't exactly answer your question, but it's a problem. We are, Dr. Millen, myself, Dr. Carpenter, we're all looking at of how to meet those needs of the struggling learners that we have in reading.
Okay.
So, but I can tell you we've got a cohort consistently of about 20 to 30 students through the grades and levels that require reading.
Both of the programs, the license would be K through 12, so I could work at any level.
Any other questions? Dr. Carpenter, what about costs in terms of, we would have to pay someone to replace you while you were gone for the year as well. What are your thoughts on that? What would that be around?
So when it comes to a sabbatical leave, so you end up paying your staff member's salary and benefits while they're out in the sabbatical, and you would, so your costs would be, the cost of hiring somebody else and the benefits package for the person that you're going to hire for 1 year. So, so if we were to look at, so Erin's, been here for a while, and, so Erin's at the, top end of, the top end of the scale, with most of our, the majority of our staff have family insurance plans. So the cost, if we were to, keep our fingers crossed and be able to hire, I think Erin, as an English teacher, I think the applicant pool, it's oftentimes a little bit better for an English teacher, so we might be able to get somebody that's in the mid-career or early career range. So let's say that's, I would say you would want to conservatively say that's going to be around $75,000 that you're bringing in somebody, plus the cost of a health insurance plan. And the district's cost of the family health insurance plan, just for the committee's understanding, is $28,000 is what our share of that health insurance plan. So you're looking at just over about $100,000 of additional costs that you would be having. And next week at our workshop, you're also going to hear other wants and needs from each of the building principals, and in terms of what they see their wants and needs are. So it becomes, and the reason that it's listed in the contract to have sabbatical leaves come to us in this time frame of the school year is to have us be able to account and budget for it. And then on the other side of the sabbatical, the way the contract reads is that the staff member would need to remain employed by us for 2 years to still be in service of the district for 2 years, or costs for that sabbatical leave would get reimbursed to the district.
So ironically, the timing of this actually is good, because it's something that we could potentially look at working into the budget rather than getting through budget season and all of a sudden having to come up with it. So what I guess my request would be is that we incorporate this into the budget on a line wherever it falls, and then it becomes the needs and the wants, and then we see if we can work it in. And that's a more budget conversation, but I would like to see it worked in, just so we can project and see where it fits. He's like, it's already there.
I was going to say, just for added clarity, we can, and we also have to, by contract, provide Erin with a response within 45 days of her initial request. So
It's 90 days, I believe.
90 days?
You have 90 days to tell me. I had 45 days to present in front of you.
So
Plenty of time.
That's right.
I think I think the challenge is, I think we don't have a budget that you vote on, that it doesn't get finalized. So like
January?
We'll have to make a decision before everything's finalized too.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Does this year go towards your retirement, years of service?
I would presume.
Good question.
They're a paid staff member, so I presume that would be the case.
I have a question. Just because this is new, because I don't think I've seen this, but I'm noticing on the paperwork, and it says half pay up to a year after 7 years, and then full pay for 14. I understand that you qualify for the second category, but is there ever a scenario, and it looks like in your letter that your goal would be to complete it in 1 year, but I'm just curious if you're open to negotiation to make it 2 years and teach 3 days a week and have somebody, I don't know if that's a possibility. I don't even know. I'm just putting it out there.
I think that I'm not district's counsel, but I think district's counsel would say that would be some individual bargaining, which you can't do as a committee. You have to kind of live by what's in the contract.
All right. That's good information.
Can I ask a question?
You don't even have to raise your hand.
Has anybody taken a sabbatical leave since the inception of Monomoy, or no? Okay.
Nobody's applied.
I've never, this is the first I've seen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been on the committee for quite a while and I've never seen it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You're breaking ground.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, then, and it's probably why we're asking so many questions too, because, we haven't, so we'll explore it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else? No? Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Sure.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated. Moving right along to the fiscal year 26 budget capital plan update.
Good evening, school committee. Michael McMillan, school business manager. We're going to present this evening on where we've got to with the capital plan. So as we're already hearing requests and needs and wants for the budget, and this is a particular section of those needs under our capital, which we have some slides. I'm going to go over just a little bit about our process and then some of our findings, what we're putting together in our 5-year plan for capital and how that's going to impact next year's budget. Oh, wrong slides. It spells the surprise for my next presentation.
Oh, yes. Don't ruin the surprise.
Just tell me when you're ready.
All right. So if you can advance.
Thank you.
So capital, and so we did talk about this with the finance subcommittee, so some of the members here will be more familiar with this, but I'm going to give a kind of quick overview. So generally, what the capital, there's different definitions of capital from the state and from both our towns, but generally speaking, it's any equipment purchase over $5,000 a unit. So, actually sometimes when we buy projectors and so on, they can be as much as $5,000, so that would count as capital. And the idea being that has to be replaced at some point, and that's why you have it in your capital plan. So you've got an idea how you're going to do that. And then any maintenance project, which is over $50,000. So like if we're doing like a roof replacement, or even, installing a new rooftop unit, or repairing something, and the cost of that's going to be over $50,000, that gets included. And this is kind of an amalgamation of the Chat. So if we use this definition, this kind of complies with the Town of Chatham's definition, and it gets all items that would be included in Harwich and with the state. And so that is the plan. Sometimes we put items which are maybe a little less than that, or for whatever reason it's worthy of keeping on our list and being aware of. So sometimes items make it in there. There might be $45,000 because we just want to make sure we have that on our list to make sure we don't miss it. So the capital budget process, there's kind of a 5-step process. We start over the summer where we do our needs assessment, and that's really me working with the facilities director, Rick Travers, and the head custodians. We review the condition of each building. We look at our needs. In each building, we do a tour of the building. We look at the condition, what is going on. We'll review what we asked for last year and what's been done this year. And through that, we identify all the needs across the district. We then prioritize them, and we have a sort of formula we use to prioritize items, which looks at how likely they are to fail, so how close they are to giving up the ghost, and what the impact of their failure would be. So some things fail, and you can still kind of keep going, and that's okay, and some things fail, and you have to close school. So that allows us to kind of rank all of our items. We score them at 10. And the impact is based on the impact on health and safety, the impact on school operations, future costs, because sometimes if you don't do it now, there's going to be a bigger future cost down the road, or it'll have some other impact. And that scores, and also just the Monomoy factor, so things that are aligned with our strategic plan, or that, directly relevant to what we're trying to do in terms of education. So if impact on all those 3 scores, those 3 items gives it a score, and that's what gives our formula, and that's how we prioritize things. And then we try and look at the different types of funding, and I'll talk about that in a little minute, about different types of funding that are open to us. Really our focus right now is those things that are going to be funded from the general fund, either in whole or in part, because that impacts our budget, and that what impacts the assessments. And then obviously getting your approval, and if necessary, approval at town meeting, and select boards and so on. And then we do implementation. So we're not going to talk so much about implementation because that comes after all the approvals. But implementation is a real challenge and a real, it does as much as the funding, implementation restricts how much we can get done in a year. Sometimes, even if we had extra funding, we just couldn't get everything done. So, like for example, if it has to get done over the summer, there's only so many projects we can do over the summer while students are out. So that does sometimes limit how much we can do as well. All right, thank you. Sorry. So just talking about funding, so there are, possible funds. General fund budget is obviously a big ticket part of this, but there is, we do have school choice funds, which we have used occasionally to provide a meet capital needs. E-rate is federal funding from the state, and that helps us to fund some technological needs, although that is not available next year for any major projects. It's just where it is on the cycle. We're hoping it'll be refunded again a year later. We have a stabilization fund which we've been putting into for a number of years, but that's supposed to be like, if we need an emergency in year. So if something failed in the middle of the year, we have a couple of $100,000 now in that fund which we'll be able to draw on to help meet emergency needs. And we do have a revolving accounts. So for example, our athletics fund, we've been built up a bit of a balance there, and we've been able to use that to help offset the costs of the press box. So we have some options there. And also, which I didn't list, but grants, and we're going to talk about a major one, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Generally, there's not a ton of grants around for big capital items like this, but there is the MSBA, and that's one of the main focus for our applications. I think it's just worth mentioning here capital responsibility. So since we changed the assessment, each town is responsible for the capital of its own elementary schools. So anything that's happening at Chatham, as along with much of the budget, all the budget of those schools, where there's capital requests for Chatham, town of Chatham is paying for all of that, and for Harwich Elementary School, town of Harwich is paying for all of that. So that has, that has raised the town's interest in our capital plan, because before they weren't that interested because they knew it just happened as part of our assessment. They would just get a number, they would approve it. But since this change, by the time they've asked us to come and talk about our capital needs in each of those buildings, they're just now more aware of what's going on, because they're trying to now include that in their capital plans. We did have an energy audit done recently, and we'll see the outcomes of that. That might help us identify grants that are available. And the last thing is, so we have our high school debt payments for the construction of the high school, the loan for that. So the way the debt is structured, it actually goes down slightly each year, your total payments. And as we those payments go down, we want to use that payment and plug that into new projects. All right, next slide. So that was the process. So how this year has gone. So Rick and I walked around all the buildings, we reviewed all the needs. This, as we mentioned last time, the middle school and Chatham Elementary School have the most immediate needs and the most visible ones. Harwich Elementary School is in great condition, and as is the high school, obviously. And that's really because they've been renovated. Well, the high school's built most recently, and Harwich Elementary School was renovated more recently than the middle school in Chatham, and that shows. Really, the major thing that's changed since we were last here is indoor air quality challenges at the middle school. So it was a particularly humid summer, and we've been working with that, trying to keep the conditions in the middle school comfortable. And that's been, as we'll talk about with the siding project, has also, the challenges with the siding is making it more difficult to keep on top of that. And we're spending a lot of time and resources to make sure that indoor air quality is still acceptable within the building. I keep showing you this slide, but this is kind of my cheat sheet on where we are and what the most needs, where the biggest needs are. And just, there's so many numbers here that are over the expected useful life. And so that's just, that makes me nervous, and it makes me think that in the next few years we're going to see more needs and more expenditure for debt and capital. More, since this district was formed, we've had one debt project, which is the high school. And, I'm looking at this list, I don't see how we go through many more years without having a number of additional debt projects. Jump to the next slide.
One quick
Yes.
comment, Michael.
Yeah.
Under auditorium, I think we were going to put...
Change that.
Yes, I know.
Thank you, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yes.
I just wanted to catch that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I should have remembered, because...
We have an auditorium.
We have an auditorium
at
in the middle school.
Yeah.
And it is actually, that's really a great point. Thank you.
That's missing.
There's obviously a huge auditorium here at the high school.
Yep.
And there's a smaller one at the middle school, but it is in need of a bit of updates and upgrades, particularly with the lights on the stage and the stage curtains. So we are looking at putting together a project to see if we could refurbish the middle school's auditorium. So that should definitely be on there. So I just wanted to also bring you up to date on where we are with the projects that we have underway. So we've had an ongoing project to replace flooring at the middle school and in Chatham Elementary School. We had a lot of carpet, and it was way past its best life. And we're replacing that with tiles. So we're replacing that with, we've actually done some classes of rubber tiles, or more the traditional VCT that you see in schools. And that just makes it it also helps to tackle air quality issues, because a carpet can get wet and it takes a long time to dry out, whereas tiles are much easier to clean. So that's been an ongoing project. We upgraded the high school camera system recently. We ran into some challenges with the server. That we had planned to do this, and then we ran into some problems with the server, so we had to do it more quickly than we were planning, but we upgraded the camera system at the high school to give that more coverage and more functionality. We put new touch screen projectors in each of the classrooms at the middle school, so that is now the same level as all the other schools. So we had these touch view screens in the elementary schools and the high school. We now also have them at the middle school. We used ESSER funds and some revolving account funds to upgrade or refurbish the courtyard at Chatham Elementary School. We put turf in there, and we upgraded the phone system at the high school. So that's not really a capital project, but it's a big project, and it's brought the phone system at the high school was previously in its own system, and the three other schools were in their own system, and this now brings them all together, so all on one system. And we replaced all the furniture at the high school this year. We're still working on the design of the high school press box. We've been talking about the middle school siding project, which I'll come on to. We are installing a new rooftop unit. That was part of the capital plan for this year. One of 9 we have at Harwich Elementary School. That's going to be replaced November 20th, I think, so that'll be great, because we don't have heating in one area of Harwich Elementary School at the moment, and the middle school roof, which we're going to go into. There's a question.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
Just how often, Michael, just come back to the phone system, how often does it need to be replaced? Because that seems to be a very oddball type of thing that can come up.
So yeah, not very often. I would say probably less than every 10 years. So the high school one, so there's 2 reasons for doing the high school. One is that it was not so we wanted all the schools to be on the same system, so we'd be able to call each other within the same system and manage it, from through one program, which we can now do. And we've been having a lot of problems with the software, the system that the high school was on. It's a big company, and they did not appreciate the support we were getting from them. A lot of the phones weren't working. There was some problem in their network interacting with our network. And so, whereas the system we've been using in the other 3 schools is working really well. So we really just brought that in. It's not a huge cost. It's just buying new set phones, and the phones here are like 10 years old. We'd hope for them to last way longer than that. So hopefully this will not come up again for a long time, like 20 years.
Jackie?
Well, I'd just like to add that with the way technology is advancing, I mean, just where I am, we've changed phone systems twice in the last 2 years.
Oh, really? That's
we don't even
crazy.
use phones anymore.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's
when we're looking at changing phone systems, and a school is very different, right? So you have a teacher in a classroom who needs to pick up a phone, perhaps. Or maybe now they're wearing an earpiece. Who knows what it's going to be. But when we're looking at replacing the next phone system, we may want to hop forward a little bit.
So the system we're on now, at the high school system was also, but the other schools were not, because we just switched to this system at the other 3 schools a couple of years ago, and this is voice over internet, so it's all internet based. So it's all software now, so you can actually you don't have to have a phone. You can do it directly from your personal cell phone or your work cell phone, or even from your computer.
So you're already there.
Yeah, I think in the long term, I probably will have fewer and fewer people will even have a desk phone, but we're still,
We're still there.
We're still there. But eventually, there's soft seats, so it's like the phone just follows you around. You can never escape your call. Okay. So the middle school roofing project. So we have talked about this. We're flagging this again because this is going to come up a lot, but we have been accepted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority Accelerated Repair Program to replace the roof at the middle school. So we just got into this program. We kind of flagged it last week at the last meeting, and we're now starting to work on the implementation of this. The reimbursement rate, we found out, is 37.32%. So that means for every dollar we spend on this project, we get 37 cents back. So it's not, that's a lot of money, because if this project ends up being $5 million, that's $1.6 million or so we'll get back. So then we'll get back, and that will really help reduce our costs, obviously. It is 37.32% of our livable costs. So the way often with these projects, not all costs are allowable for one reason or another. They have a formula, there's certain maximums you're allowed to spend in some areas, and they won't only reimburse up to that amount of allowable costs, and we'll work to try and make sure as much of our costs are allowable. That would be what we'd expect to see reimbursed. There is a number of approval processes to go with this project, so we will need to come back to you for to get this initial compliance certification and local authorization for schematic design funds. Those are the first two big items, particularly that local authorization. So I'm working with the MSBA and our local council to see what exactly is required in terms of local authorization. I'm hoping it's just the school committee, because we have funds already set aside in this year's budget to do that. But whether it is or not remains to be seen. So,
I just have a question about process. So
Yeah.
you've got funds set aside in this year's budget, so
Yes.
FY25, but yet town meeting approval is going to be required, and that won't be until May. So can they back approve?
no, so there's
Okay.
there's two parts to this, and there's two parts to the approval. So first of all, the way the MSBA works, first thing you do is a feasibility study, which is really where they come and they look at the design of your roof, what the options are for replacing it. They prepare the procurement the procurement documents, and that's the first part. You have a designer and a project manager, and that's the first part. And you have to get approval to do that. And then you go into construction, and that's where you go out to bid, you find out how much it's going to be, and then you actually do the construction. So we will need, in all likelihood, we'll need town meeting approval for the construction, because that's going to require debt.
Okay.
And that's where, our process is to get to approval to do that.
All right.
at town meeting. And we can definitely talk about that in more detail, about how the process works. But yeah, so I believe, and that's why I want to check with local council, that we will not need anything like town meeting approval to do the feasibility study, because it's not requiring debt, but we will need it for the actual construction.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And then the middle school siding project, we've already talked about that. So the estimated budget is $6.3 million, and that is going to require further discussions with the town. And we are moving ahead. We're planning to move ahead now with getting the final design and procurement completed, so that we know exactly how much it is, and we can start July 1 to do that project. That's the aim. All right, thank you very much. So, combining all this, the work, this is just draft. As we finalize the budget, we'll finalize these projects as well. At the moment, for FY26, we're looking at the siding and the roof for kind of our key projects. We would like to complete or continue with the flooring at Chatham Elementary School and the middle school. The Chatham Elementary School, I think this will be the last year. So if we get that done, we'll be all done with Chatham Elementary School flooring for now, and the middle school's getting close. We're looking at the middle school classroom furniture and the facilities truck. Whether or not they make it for the final draft of the budget and remains to be seen. We're still just trying to work out exactly what that might look like for next year, and whether we can get through another year with what we've got. And the press box construction, I've got this up here because it is going to be a big project, but it's not going to be from the general fund. It's a combination of some monies we have in the athletics revolving account, and donations from the CPCs of both towns, and from the Booster Club, who are continuing to try and raise money. And then looking ahead for future years, we're looking at replacing some of the boilers, continuing the flooring replacement. We have a cycle for replacing IT equipment, which is coming up. I'd like to continue to replace RTUs, that's rooftop units for the Harwich Elementary School. And those are really the major things. I think once we get through where I'm thinking is we get through the siding and the roof at the middle school, and then we're focused on the boilers, and then the Chatham Elementary School roof and siding. All right. So I know I'm going quickly, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. But I tried to estimate what impact this might have on next year's budget request. So, obviously, Last time I tried to estimate something, didn't go great, so we're off with the siding by quite a magnitude. So I hedged my bets this time, and I just assumed for the roof that it would be the same as, I think I just assumed it'd be the same as the siding, so like $6 million. I can't believe it'd be that much, but because in theory, the siding's a more complicated project, I think, but that will all come out when we do the design and the feasibility study, and that's really why you do the feasibility study. But so assuming it was that much, and then we paid it over 20 years, you can see, so what I did is the payments for each of these projects over the next 5 years, and looking at the siding coming on in 2026, and then the boiler, and then a boiler a year for the next couple of years, the next few years, and also the ongoing debt at the high school. So if we did do, 2026, the change to the budget would be an additional $600,000 for additional debt. So that's obviously a pretty big number, and we'll be looking at what our options are around trying to keep that down. I mean, to be honest, if we got both of those projects done, it's not higher because we did budget some funds within this year's budget for the middle school roof project and the siding, and we have refinanced the high school debt, which brings those payments down, and that goes down each year as well. So it helps to offset the increases. So, there's a lot of way to go yet down this road. Don't have final numbers, but just in sense of the scale of what we're dealing with and what we're looking at, I really hope it'll be less than that. We do have options. So, for example, we could decide to do it over 30 years instead of 20. That would have an impact. And those are the sort of decisions we'll have to make over the coming months as we get through these projects and we start to firm up on some of the numbers. All right. That's it. And now the process is, it's a cycle. We go back through it every year, and then we'll implement and update, and so we keep going through this process every year. All right.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I like the graphic.
Yeah, I love it.
It reminds me a lot of our Portrait of a Graduate, like the whole school improvement plan.
Carry it through.
Budget workshop.
Budget.
Next item is the budget workshop, November 14th. Are you talking about that? Oh, that's just a reminder?
Oh,
All right, it's just a reminder that we have a budget workshop next week. 6:30 still?
I think we have it on the schedule for 6, but we can do it.
6? 6 o'clock work for everybody for next week?
Whatever it's scheduled for.
Okay, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock for next week. I think I'm
And
good.
did you say in the library?
Right here.
Okay, perfect. All right, so then the MSBA accelerated repairs.
So,
I put this on the agenda and not knowing Michael created a slide, so he ruined my thunder. No, but you have in your packets just the letter from the MSBA that says we've been accepted into the accelerated repairs project. And I, tongue-in-cheek, was commenting to Michael about the letter, that the one thing the letter seems to be missing was the one thing that everybody would ask, which is, what's the percentage of reimbursement coming from the state that was in Michael's presentation of 37.32%. So, we have, so I know full well that, that the newspaper, had an article on the siding project that, we've gotten several calls, coming my direction on, what does that mean? That we went to town meeting last year and it was 2.5 million is what the estimate was, and now working with engineers, 6.3, and some of the angst that I think some have in both towns. I know that somebody had mentioned that there was a community member that was walking around the middle school looking at the siding, just after reading the article, and that was before news that we've been accepted into the MSBA's accelerated repair project. So thanks to Joy's expertise, we have a press release ready to go out. I just wanted to wait for this school committee meeting before putting the press release out, but we'll put a press release out tomorrow that we've been accepted into the MSBA's Accelerator Repairs Project, and I can imagine that'll be the next newspaper article, and we'll have others then, wanting to know how much. And the reality is we don't, until we go through this first process and get engineers in and, have them look at the roof and come up with, their best understanding of what the cost might be. We don't know what the cost of putting a new roof on.
Any questions? Okay. We'll move right on to the middle school, the MRMS Building Committee update.
I think just related to that, in the article or in the press release we'll put out there, I think I'll be putting something out unless each of you have come with a list of people that you would love to see on the building committee, but I'll put something out to our families and community just from me, just asking if people have expertise in design and construction, that we would love to have them, be part of our building committee and to let me know so we can bring names forward. But, but as the timeline that Michael shared shows, we've kind of got to get moving on that process.
Okay. Next item is the Q1 finance report. You're back.
Okay. So, good evening, school committee. Q1 finance report. You have the report in your packs, and I just pulled out a couple of the key charts to show you, just to talk through and see where we are. It's still early in the year. We finished the first quarter, but we've only had a month of school, and really that's when the spending ramps up. So we're still early in the year at the moment. So what this chart shows, this is where we are. We're at the same point in the last 5 or 6 years, or six years. There's a light blue block you can see, which is the budget, and then the dark blue line is the expenditure to date. And that's, well, not expenditure, sorry, encumbered or expended funds to date. So right now we have 8% of our budget is unencumbered or unexpended, and that compares to about 9.7% for the last 5 or 6 years. But you can see 2022, when we were in the midst of COVID, really helped, well, not helped, but our expenditure was down for 2022 as we weren't doing as much, there was many substitutes or athletics and all that stuff, and field trips, so our expenditure was much lower. And we had state funding and federal funding for where COVID was driving our costs up, so that helped to keep everything down. So I think 8% in light of that is a good, comfortable place to be. In previous years, we had around 8%. We still had enough money to close out the budget at the end of the year. So that's a good place. If you go to the next slide. So this is the other. This shows similar information, but in a different way. So this is just our expenditure to date. So it's just expenditures, does not include encumbrances. Each month through the year. So start from July, August, we're just at September with this quarter report. And then the gray line is the forecast based on all the expenditure since the district was formed, actually. So I went way back to look at where expenditure, if you just do a projection or forecast based on historic data, where we would expect our expenditure to be each month of this year and where would you expect it to end. And the gray line is the forecast, and we have a lower confidence and an upper confidence, which is those orange lines. So based on that information, it looks, and the blue line, you can just see starting in July, August, and September shows that we are around our forecast, or around the forecast. So that makes me comfortable. This is just a very helpful tool to just make sure there's nothing crazy going on, like we're not way above, even if the 8% that we see for total encumbered and expended was okay, but we were way under or way up over the forecast. As you can see, we're slightly under the forecast. So I think that's good. And then you see that little jump from May to June, and that's just because we have our summer pays for teaching staff and some other staff happens in June, so you see a bit of a spike because you're paying out 5 paychecks at once. So I also included, so that's where we are with our finances. I included a couple of updates on projects that we've already really talked about. And then just one was the installation of turf at Chatham Elementary School. It looks great, and the school's getting a lot of use out of that space already. You're good? Yeah, that's great. So then just go into a little more detail on our expenditure. So this again is the light blue line. This is our expenditure broken down by major account, which is an account categorization that we get from the state. It's not perfect, but we know at least it's consistent, and we can also compare it to other school districts if we ever need to. And it gives you, again, light blue line is the budget, dark blue line is expenditure or encumbrances to date. There's also, it's hard to see here, but there's also a red box in there, which is the percentage of the budget that had been spent by this time last year. So again, we just can see what's changing from year to year, anything we should be concerned about. There's a few areas where actually our dark blue budget line is higher than the light blue line, which is bad news. So that is slightly in guidance, which is due to staffing change. Also in programs with other school districts, and what's driving that at the moment is out-of-district placements in special education schools, collaboratives and private schools. So that's students who we're not able to provide services for within the district, and we send them to we contract with other schools to provide their services, and we pay those schools. And we've had a few more placements than we had expected, and that's pushed us over budget. And the last place, we're slightly over budget on professional development, but we're not asking for transfers for any of these items at the moment. It's probably because it's early in the year, particularly our district placements can change a lot, so we want to kind of wait and see exactly where we end up before we make a placement. And professional development costs will maybe offset by some grants, which we're just finalising right now. So hopefully that'll help resolve some of those issues, and if not, we'll come back for transfers between these major accounts later in the year. A couple other places just to highlight, so in operations and maintenance, you can see that the red box for FY24 is much higher at this point than last year than it is this year. So that's, I'm not getting too excited yet, but I think that's good news because it means we're not spending as much on maintenance of the buildings as we have seen in recent years. So we've spent so much more. Every year we spent a lot more than the previous years, but this year so far it looks okay. So it looks like we might be on budget this year instead of over budget as we've been in the last few years. Our substitutes, our substitutes are then another subset within this, but I'm just flagging it because that's one of the areas it's always helpful to keep an eye on. It had come down last year because it had been really high into FY23. It came down in FY24. So far it's looking like it's back up to almost close to FY23 levels. So it's really early, we're only a month in, so who knows what could happen, but that's just one area I'm keeping an eye on. And the other area I'm just keeping an eye on is new hires. So with the changes to our contracts, where we've removed steps at the bottom of some of our contracts, that means when we bring new hires in, they're essentially starting 2 steps up than they would have under the old contract. So in the past, if somebody left who's in a step, exited on a step 10, and we hired somebody at step 8, then we saved money, and so that would also help offset the budget. But now, if somebody leaves in step 10, we're often then having to replace them with somebody who's already on the new step 10, and so we're not seeing the same level of savings as we have in prior years, and so that's just one area I'm keeping an eye on. So that's not necessarily a problem for this year's budget, but it does mean that there's not savings available, and in next year's budget there'll be a knock-on effect. All right, just a few other things that are updated on revenue. As I mentioned, it's early in the year, so our revenue is mostly in line with expectations. I just noticed there's one area that I think it's worth flagging, and really this is part of our investments. Our interest on our investments is down slightly, and that's partly to do just with timing of when we sell our bonds, but it's also the percentage, the rates we're getting on our bonds are slightly lower than it's been last year. And I think that's just generally with where the economy is going, interest rates are down, and so that's impacting the return we make on those investments. And I think that's the only major thing. Everything else, it's so early. I mean, obviously our federal rec grants are down because we don't have ESSER anymore, and that's wrapping up this year. We've finished all our ESSER projects and we're just wrapping up reporting, and all those funds are expended. Student activities, there's an update here on our student activity funds. That's the student funds, and they're pretty quiet so far, but our class of 24 and 25 are the busiest. All right, that's everything. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Excuse me, we'll move on to the Finance Committee.
So Meredith was elected as our chair, and in her absence tonight, I'll just give a quick report on the Finance Committee's behalf. We basically just reviewed everything that you all got and just asked questions and came prepared tonight to hear it again. So that's what we did in our Finance Committee. Anything to add, Jackie or Brad?
I think you said it all.
And Michael did as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Superintendent's report.
We'd like to thank Scott Clay and Clay Subaru, who donated a number of books to the Chatham Elementary School Library. Thank you also to local resident Susan Sear, who donated a desk and some other items to the district. And finally, November is Native American Heritage Month, a time to celebrate the significant contributions that the first Americans made to the establishment and growth of the United States and to our region in particular. The name of our district is derived from the Monomoy, a Wampanoag term meaning a mighty rush of water, and from Monomoyet, one of the villages of the Wampanoag Nation. We honor and acknowledge that our schools are located upon the traditional lands of the Wampanoag people and pay our respect to members past, present, and future.
Thank you. Thanks. We're going to move down to the action items. Vote required. It's the second reading for policy files, IJOA, travel abroad, and IHBA, IEP, electronic or digital signatures. Does anyone have any questions on the policies as they are in the packet? Do I have a motion? Jackie?
I'll move to approve file IJOA, travel abroad, travel international abroad, as presented in your packet.
Do you have a second?
And I'll second.
Brad? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And abstained? Okay. And then we have file IHBA. I have a motion.
I will move that, propose that IHBA-A be approved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes for that. Thank you. We've had the presentation of the warrants. So we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, Jackie?
Do we have an approval of a previous year invoice?
Oh, I'm sorry, we took that off the list. Those were not ready. My
Thank you.
apologies. My eyes immediately just skipped it. Sorry. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will adjourn at 7:44.
All right.
Thank you.